So the canyon that I decided to park up in and sleep in last night has got some pretty cool, interesting features around. So before I tucked in for the night, I went for a walk, just kind of scouting around, looking, see what was close by. And actually ran across a couple things that I think are pretty cool. So this morning I got up right before sunrise and came out to set the camera up on this one subject that I'm on right now, which I'm actually really excited about. I think it looks pretty cool. With all the erosion in the area, in the landscape around this part of southern Utah, there's just a lot of sandstone, muddy looking kind of dirt rock, I guess. It's some sort of sandstone, I would imagine, but it's got another layer of like harder sandstone above it. So everything kind of erodes out from underneath. And you get these capstones, these cool boulders that just kind of topple over and just kind of roll out into the landscape. It makes some pretty cool shapes. And that's kind of what I've got here. So the biggest challenge with this one so far has been trying to line up all the boulders in the foreground of my composition to kind of make sense of it all. And there's this one dark spot in the middle where everything kind of converges to. So I'm trying to balance all the elements to get it to kind of make sense to draw your eye towards the center. And that was easier said than done on this one. So I had to move the camera a lot. I'd line it up, focus, and realize I didn't like the composition, and then move the tripod, line it up again. Still didn't like the composition, so I've been at it for quite a minute here trying to get this lined up. I think I finally am happy with it. So there's one boulder that's higher up, kind of, hanging off, or just looking like it's going to fall off the edge, which adds a little tension to the scene, but I think it's balanced by the ones that are on the ground in front of it. That's my theory anyway. And then there's like layering of textures going on in here too. So I've got the foreground, the immediate foreground, which is just kind of like shale pieces kind of busted off everywhere, dirt, and then a mound of like things that have run off, kind of slurry looking things. And then I've got these vertical lines in the mud rock, like sandstone behind it, which I think are really cool. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. So my subject is kind of backed up in a corner of this canyon here where it's all boxed in. There's not going to be any direct light on it. And by the time there is, it would be high in the sky and very harsh. So the early first sunrise light didn't even come into this part of the canyon. But I did take an exposure early on like that, even though it was all just really subdued ambient light. Just because I'm kind of curious to see if that's going to be the best lighting for it, or if it would be better with what I'm waiting for now, which is actually reflected light. So there is an opposing side to this canyon that's catching the sunrise light. It's a little subdued because it looks like there's some high clouds on the horizon that are kind of killing all the direct sunlight. So I don't know if I'm going to get what I'm going for here, but there is a wall back here that could potentially bounce some reflected light into my scene. I don't know if that would be any better or not, but I'm waiting to take a second exposure once this lights up more and hopefully bounces more light into my scene. And then I'll see how I feel about it then. So I've gone for Provia 100F again on this one. And the dynamic range is nothing. It's very flat, like 2 or 3 stops. So not a problem for Provia. I'm just really unsure where to put the highlights on this one because there aren't any really bright things. It's pretty much all just mid-tone colors, different shades of mid-tones. So my hope is that the color slide film will help it, just kind of help it out a little bit, give it some color contrast and whatnot. Not that Provia is a particularly exaggerated film, but the color slide film, just by nature, I'm hoping will give it a little bit of a hand, Settings on that first exposure were 2 seconds at f32, or just shy of f32, so f22 and 2/3. I'm playing with funny apertures this trip because I have third stop increments on my lenses. And so the difference between f22 and 2/3 versus f32 isn't that much in sharpness. But what it does do is it makes my shutter speeds in even 2 seconds instead of having to try to guess, 2 and 1/3 on the stopwatch, which my stopwatch doesn't do. So that just gives me a nice even 2 second exposure. And I just sacrifice a third stop on my aperture instead of being rigidly fixed on f32. So sunlight's gotten a little more intense on this wall back here. I just don't know how much longer I really want to wait it out because there is another composition I want to go explore. So I think I'm going to get busy here and shoot the other side of this film holder. Or at least I'm going to meter it and see what the difference is. So I went ahead and took that second exposure. The ambient light had raised up quite a bit, so that was a full stop faster at 1 second, f29, whatever it was. I really liked the subject. I think the composition was pretty good, but I want to go explore some other areas, and I don't think the light's going to get much better. I think I've pretty much seen the best of what I had in mind there, so I think I'm done on this one. So that's the first 2 sheets of film from the morning. This one's the darker exposure. And they're pretty flat, which I kind of expected. But unfortunately, I don't think I got quite the separation between this slope here and the back wall quite as well as I would like to have. It looks really good here. Here it kind of washes up a little bit, but I might be able to work with that a little bit. The tones in the rock they're all pretty well exposed, it looks like. This dark spot here, I think, was pretty much right where I wanted it. So the exposure looks great. Sharpness looks super sharp. Yeah, no complaints there. Those are perfect sharp. There's this little bit of brush up here. It looks like a little bit of pieces of grass in here. And they're just absolutely razor sharp. Super cool. Kind of leaning towards this one, I think, because it looks like it's a little more well exposed. This one's a tad bright. I didn't see this on the ground glass, but I got this little bit of a ridge creeping in up on the top right corner. I actually was trying to not include that, but I missed that on the ground glass, I guess. Which is no big deal because you almost always end up cropping in a little bit to get rid of the film borders and stuff. So I don't think it'll be much of a problem once I get it scanned in. And it really was like, I would have probably included this. There was this crown up here that was a different color, different texture. The wall just kind of ended here, and it was just this crown of boulders. And I probably would have included that, but it just looked awkward having just this strip at the very top. And then beyond that was just sky. So I didn't have a lot to work with. So I just tried to focus in down closer and just get these rocks as the main focus. I spent a lot of time on this shot trying to move the camera to line up not only this foreground boulder, but the relationship between that and then the 2 slopes here with this little boulder here that looks like it's about to fall over. Gives it a little bit of tension, I think, but then it kind of balances out with this one. And then the dark spot, and then the V-shape pattern here, and then the straight up and down lines at the back. I really wanted that whole composition to make sense in the frame as best as I could, and I had to move the camera a lot of different ways just to try to get it all lined up. It was actually pretty challenging, but in the end I think it turned out pretty well. I think all the elements lined up. I think your eye just kind of gravitates towards this rock, of course, but then there's more to look at, and it kind of just zags up through the scene. I think it works. I was pretty happy with this composition. So it's a little flat. I'll work on color and contrast balance when I get it scanned in. But I was actually kind of going for more of a muted, kind of cool looking photograph. So the film actually went a lot more blue. This is just kind of more reflecting sky color, which is totally fine, but I kind of imagine it being warmed up a little bit more, so I probably will try to warm it up a bit in post. But between that and a little more contrast, I might end up dodging and burning this a little bit to kind of help make the layers stand out a little bit. But yeah, really stoked to see that. I was really happy with the composition. I'm glad I took the time that I did to get it lined up with the camera because I think it worked out. So I think I'm going to call it right here. I just want to say thanks for watching. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up button, that'd really help the channel out, and I'd sure appreciate it. Maybe while you're down there, hit that subscribe button if you want to stay in touch, and ring the bell if you want to be notified when I put new videos up. So thanks again, and catch you in the next one.